welcome everybody to Club Day number 14. Got our good friend Nick here from Galoy.
How you doing?
All the way down from Austin, our Pleb Lab, so appreciate you coming down and sharing with us.
I'm sorry if I'm not who you think I was going to be. Was it a mining person who used to kind of bailed at the last minute?
Yeah.
I'm the understudy.
So we got our brothers here, right down the road. So Nick, you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself and how you got into Bitcoin?
Yeah, first, I just want to thank everybody for welcoming me here. This is my first time in San Antonio, so it's a beautiful city. And, you know, kind of for the people in the video, we're 8 floors up, kind of looking out on San Antonio. I think the sun is just about setting. It's pretty beautiful here. But yeah, thank you. This is an awesome site. But yeah, today I'm kind of just going to talk about Bitcoin adoption, specifically in El Salvador. My company, Galoy, we make a wallet, so the Bitcoin Beach wallet, if you're familiar with that. If you're not, it was one of the early wallets in El Salvador that actually led up to them adopting Bitcoin, as Bitcoin law a few years ago. I'm also representing Pleb Lab. I co-work out of that. Shout out to Carl over there. He came down with me, and probably have a little bit to talk about Pleb Lab. And yeah, I'm probably interested in hearing what you guys are building here in San Antonio. It's great to see another sister Bitcoin community here with all you guys. I think Austin probably started, just a small group, and just, you guys can definitely grow it and make it bigger. It's just grassroots movement. So yeah.
It's all about opening it up, Austin and San Antonio.
Yeah.
Down the road.
Yeah, this is awesome to see. I remember talking to Gabe, a year ago is when I met him, and he talked about building this space out. It was very casual. I didn't realize he actually built it up this big. This is awesome to see. So, dreams come true. You just got to do it. Come make it. Come take it. All right, I don't know. You just go through my slide deck? Yeah. I know, so pretty much today I'm just going to go through, I know you got to have the Pleb Say thing where you kind of talk about your background in Bitcoin. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my Bitcoin journey. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about what my company at Galoy does. Not a lot of people know that name, Galoy, but we do a lot more than just the Bitcoin Beach wallet. So I'm going to get you a little bit about what our company does. Then I'm probably going to shill, we have a conference we do every year in El Salvador called Adopting Bitcoin. If you guys are kind of on the fence or like, I kind of want to see what's going on in El Salvador, I talk to a lot of people like, how do I do it? How do I go down there? I'll kind of give you some tips on, how to go down to kind of the Bitcoin country. We're a Bitcoin country in Texas, but I mean, El Salvador is actually the Bitcoin country. So, other than that, I'm going to talk about just Bitcoin communities around the world. There's a lot of these little mecca grassroots movements we're doing here. There's places like Bitcoin Jungle, Bitcoin Mountain, a lot of places in Africa. So just kind of, this is the global movement that we're kind of all in. And then we're going to shill some cool Pleb Lab stuff. I'm going to bring Carl up here to talk about, that's a lot better. I should talk like that, shouldn't I? Anyway, so my Bitcoin journey. So this is a picture of me right here. This is at Pleb Lab, and this right here is an S9 miner. So my background is actually not in mining. This is just a cool picture, just to show me. But yeah, kind of my Bitcoin journey started in pretty much the early days, like 2010. I was working at like big Fortune 50 company. I was like an IT guy working on servers. I was a server admin at the time. And my background is in software engineering, so I am a programmer. There's a shout out to the programmers in the crowd. But yeah, I was just at work one day. We racked and stacked servers. We did IBM servers. We had this big data center. We racked and stacked. And I worked with pretty much the typical system administrator. Ponytail, trench coat, neck beard, protruding, just weird, like, Unabomber looking, kind of crazy looking dude. But they were all cool, my friends. And we saw on Reddit, I think it was on Reddit at the time, we just saw this Bitcoin thing. You mine on your computer. At the time, you could actually CPU mine on a computer. And we're like, oh man, we've got these test servers under our desk here with, like, at the time, I think it was only like a 32 gigabyte of RAM, like, not a super beefy machine for today's standard, but back then we're like, oh man, we should mine this Bitcoin thing. But we didn't do it. Like, I'd be on my island right now if we did it, so I'm here as a pleb. So where we went wrong is, at the time, we calculated the energy cost of Bitcoin would cost, I don't know, $100 in energy cost, and we're gonna get $1 worth of Bitcoin, because back then Bitcoin was pennies on the dollar. So we're like, it's not worth it. But we didn't understand the economics of money. 21 million scarcity. We grew up in a fiat world. We didn't understand, the gold standard, any of that stuff, or how the economy even worked. So we laughed it off, and I cried to this day. I'm like, I make fun of it every year. I had a Facebook post where I talked about it, and my coworker, basically, who talked me out of it every year. I'm like, dude, why'd you talk me out of Bitcoin? So don't let anybody talk you out of doing your crazy ideas, because you might regret it. But I love that you're just down here doing crazy stuff. So yeah, follow your dreams. So that was the early days, and then like 2014, I got a Coinbase account and just pretty much just used it to buy stuff on the internet. I wasn't using the Silk Road or anything, but it felt like a more secure credit card for me to pay stuff on the internet for like premium streaming. And if you're familiar with like Usenet, NZDs, and back in the day bulletin boards type stuff, that was getting pretty big. And yeah, just kind of ignored it until really 2017 is when the monetary policy really makes sense. So at the time of like what happened in 2008 with the financial crisis, none of it made sense to me. I was right out of college at the time. I got lucky and I was able to get a job right out of college, but all my bosses got fired. Like I was like a college intern out of college, like, hey, you're now doing this full-time guy's job who's been here for 20 years. So I kind of like got thrown in the mix, but it never made sense to me. Like why are these boom and bust cycles of like the fiat monetary system? And 2017 is kind of when I met this guy who was this thing like a libertarian, like anarchist. He actually was a self-described anarchist, but I didn't really know what the word meant of just like taking control of yourself and your own future. And really, I started to get into just Austrian economics and the whole, 21 million really does make the difference of this supply cap. You can't print it, you can't inflate it. So ever since then, I just really got into it. And then about a year ago, I started a Bitcoin company, writing software for a Bitcoin wallet. So that's kind of my journey from pleb to still pleb.
Tell them about the first time you found out about taxes.
Oh my God, you heard that story, didn't you? Yeah, so my first job, I was 14 and I had a paper route. Like back then, that job doesn't exist anymore. But I would get 5 cents per paper delivered, right? So I'd go around this, and I had the easy route. I had an apartment complex, so there's like 8 newspapers you deliver in one shot. So I'd be like, 40 cents, awesome. But my first time I got a paycheck, I'm like, Dad, why is 30% of my paycheck? I'm like, what is this? Taxes. And then at the end of the year, my dad was 14, and TurboTax was brand new, but no one was using it. So my dad's like, here's the book on how to file your taxes. And I had to read page by page how to do my W-2 and the 1040 easy at the time. And I'm like, why is the government taking all my money? Why does it exist? And I was just a 14-year-old kid. So I've been kind of like, taxation theft since I was like 14. Because I got thrown in the deep end. But I told you that story once sometime, didn't I? Cool. Anything else? Any other questions?
That's it. Just want to move into Galoy.
Yeah, that's my journey. So what is Galoy? Many of you know about the whole Bitcoin beach story. We're actually rebranding the wallet to Blink because we are moving beyond just El Salvador and El Zante. Our goal is to pretty much reach, these emerging markets. Really banking the unbanked is still kind of our bread and butter. A lot of the Bitcoin beach story is there was this community in El Zante, which is about an hour away from the capital, San Salvador, and they didn't have ATM back there. The internet was not very well connected, a few years back, and these people had to drive to the city. This is, 2015, when gangs were a huge problem in El Salvador. So these people would drive from El Zante to the city, San Salvador, and they would take cash out of the big bank, and then they'd drive back an hour to the city, but half the time they would get mugged or robbed on their trek back from, all these El Salvador gangs. So there was a guy who used to surf down in El Zante, because El Zante is known as a surfer's mecca. A lot of people go there for the surf. And he kind of realized, the problem that was going on. And then there was this anonymous donor who donated all this money. No one knows who he is. It's kind of like the story of Satoshi, like, who is this guy? But there was one stipulation. The money he donated has to stay in Bitcoin. Like, you have to create a circular economy. And really the idea was, like, if these people had the money and it stayed in Bitcoin and stayed local in the community, they wouldn't have to make the trek an hour to the city to take the cash out of a bank and potentially get robbed on the way back. Same thing with remittances. You know, a lot of the people moved away from El Salvador to the United States. They would work a job, they'd send money back home, but the GDP of the country, I believe at one point it was like 20% of the GDP was gone from fees from Western Union. So obviously Bitcoin comes out, fees are pretty much non-existent. So I think their GDP went up like 20% the day they adopted Bitcoin as like a standard. So anyways, so that's kind of our history. I'm going to show this video right here. We actually had a piece on 60 Minutes a few years ago with the founder of Bitcoin Beach, which is Mike Peterson, and then one of our co-founders started the Bitcoin Beach wallet, kind of pro bono. He just kind of saw it on like Forbes. I think he read an article about this El Zante place, and we just built a wallet because they needed a lightning was becoming popular at the time. So let me cue this video up here.
60 Minutes Overtime.
This week on 60 Minutes, we reported on Bitcoin Beach, a small coastal town in El Salvador called El Zante that has created a Bitcoin economy. It's one of the first places in the world you can use the cryptocurrency Bitcoin to pay for just about anything. Mike Peterson is the man who started the Bitcoin Beach initiative.
The goal from the beginning was to create a circular economy with Bitcoin where the store is accepting it, but then they're turning around and paying their employee in Bitcoin, and then their employee can pay their water bill in Bitcoin and do it electronically rather than having to go to the water office and wait in line. So that was the goal, was circular economy with Bitcoin. And everybody said they couldn't do it, but you guys are here and you see the results.
To make it happen, Peterson needed to get locals on board with his plan. He got help when, out of the blue, someone offered to launch a better Bitcoin wallet app in El Zante. Chris Hunter is a tech entrepreneur who saw an opportunity to deliver a faster and cheaper way to transact with Bitcoin using the new Lightning app. Before connecting with Mike Peterson and Bitcoin Beach, he shopped his idea to venture capitalists, who told him he was 5 years ahead of his time.
They acknowledged that the technology existed, but they thought it was simply academic or not usable for people in the real world in the year 2020.
So, how did you get here?
After we got rejected from literally every venture capitalist that we approached in summer of 2020, we had read about Mike Peterson in Forbes, we had heard him on speak on a podcast, so we cold called him. We had no idea we existed, and we said, hey, let us build for you pro bono some custom tech to support this community initiative that you were trying to get going, to support or create a circular Bitcoin economy.
What was the problem you were solving here with the way Bitcoin was being used at the point you became here?
People didn't have a solution here in terms of just a simple, easy-to-use wallet that allowed them to do two things. Number one, save their money, and then spend their money. The vast majority of the individuals here have never had a bank account. The vast majority of the merchants here and businesses don't have a credit card terminal or anything that approximates that. So in a cash economy, introducing something novel like Bitcoin and a wallet there, you have to have a good user experience in order for them to actually adopt it. Otherwise, they'll just push it to the side.
What was the user experience like in the early days of Bitcoin here in El Salvador, and what's it like now?
Well, in the early days, I think a lot of the times it was slow and expensive in so much as that there were on-chain Bitcoin transactions, right? And so you can send money on the Bitcoin protocol, but it typically takes 30 minutes for final settlement, which if you're buying a coffee or paying for lunch is not very effective if you're waiting around for 30 minutes for the transaction to
Say check, I feel like your money.
Right, and so we introduced a new wallet building on Lightning, right? And Lightning is a layer on top of Bitcoin that allows for these effectively free instant settlements, right? Something that's actually faster than a credit card transaction, right? And that's the essence of the technology behind the wallet that we brought to El Zante.
Chris Hunter's Bitcoin Beach wallet is the most popular way to use Bitcoin in El Zante. The experience of using it feels similar to Venmo or Apple Pay. Even though you're paying with Bitcoin, the wallet shows you the value of the transaction in whatever currency you're used to, so you know exactly how much you're spending. It also includes a map that shows users which vendors accept Bitcoin. It all feels very high-tech for a beach town with no paved roads, but Chris Hunter and Mike Peterson are betting that if it works here, it may be a sign of things to come everywhere else.
This is a postcard from the future to show the world that Bitcoin is money and everyday people can use it as such. They're using this advanced money and an advanced wallet that's more advanced than many of us are using in the US.
60 minutes.
Yeah, so that's kind of the story, the early day story. But like I was saying before, there's a big history, decade before that, 2009, before Bitcoin even existed, Mike Peterson was building this, surf community with kind of youth outreach programs, computer classes, but really Bitcoin kind of, turned that into kind of, put that on the world stage for the most part. Yeah, so unfortunately our Bitcoin Beach wallet is not available in the United States just because of regulation reasons. But if you guys do travel to El Salvador, it's on the App Store, so you can get it and use it there. And we're also open source software, so I know there's a few developers in the crowd. So if anyone wants to build like their own wallet or their own, community Bitcoin bank, all of that code is free and open source. We have many different products ranging from like a mobile wallet, which they featured on that video. We've got web wallets, dashboards, admin panels, pretty much anything you need to run a quote-unquote, Bitcoin community bank. And we also have, being in El Salvador and in some of these countries with hyperinflated money. I know we were talking earlier about like Venezuela. The currency's hyperinflating, and they're really trying to get hold of just dollars. Dollars is stable enough for them. So we do have a few products. It's not a stable coin, it's a different mechanism, but it's called stable sats. But it provides like US dollar stability, using the Lightning Bitcoin network.
So with stable sats, how it works, well, I know you're going to explain it right.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's like if me and you do a transaction, and the price of Bitcoin drops, if we're using stable sats, you still keep the value in dollars that I give you.
So if you have $10 in stable sats, and Bitcoin drops from like 70K to 20K, your money didn't just go down in value, you hold that $10, it stays stable. So there's a lot of technical mechanisms we do to make that happen. But I'm not going to go into those details because that's like a whole presentation itself. But it isn't a stable coin. It's not the same as Tether. It's not like USDC. It's totally different. You're not exposed to like them, having assets. Maybe they don't have $1 backing every dollar. It's more based on an exchange and this thing called an inverse perpetual swap. But it's a bunch of finance stuff. I'm not going to.
How many users use stable sats like on a daily basis?
I don't really know.
Utilizing like the Bitcoin or the Lightning?
Yeah, I don't really know the numbers, but it's pretty popular in El Salvador.
So I remember when I first heard about stable sats, I was asking him about like, when he told me how you don't lose your dollar value, it automatically hit me like, well, what's the use of like Ethereum or all these other L2, stable coins that they're talking about building?
Yeah.
It's all just a money thing. Like these guys are actually down there supporting that community, just so they can like make an honest living.
And a lot of it has to do with the trust issuing. So like a Tether, you're trusting one company. So even if Tether moved from, let's say, I'm pretty sure they're on like the Tron blockchain or some BS. Even if they move to like Taro on top of Lightning, you're still trusting that one company issuing this thing. Stable sats is different because you can spread out the risk amongst exchanges. So you could have 10 different exchanges, spread the risk out 10%, and if one exchange goes belly up, like obviously you don't do business with FTX, but for instance, if they did, your risk is spread out between different exchanges. And they're holding the asset Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the asset they're holding. It's just they basically take both sides of a trade. They like short and long a trade, and you basically stay stable. It's a fairly simple mechanism, just complex to implement.
And how long has stable sats been around for?
It's been around for actually like a couple of years now, like a year and a half. We didn't call it stable sats. The idea's been around since 2015. The concept is a synthetic dollar. And it's literally like, even in traditional finance, it's called an inverse perpetual swap. It's taking both sides of the trade to keep it stable. I think a few exchanges implemented it in 2018. I think Standard Sats was one of the ones. One of our friends, Super Testnet, uses it a lot. But we kind of rebranded it like 6 or 8 months ago to stable sats to make it more Bitcoin friendly.
I got a different question. What do you think about, like, because on the crypto side they talk about this kind of stable coin that's like a basket of like currencies of Bitcoin and Ethereum. What's your thoughts on all that kind of stuff?
I mean, your money will go up and down with the basket of currencies. This is based on Bitcoin as the asset to a US dollar. So it stays as stable as the US dollar will
Do
stay.
you guys pay attention to stuff like what they're doing, or not at all?
Not really, I mean, it's shitcoins. We don't pay attention to shitcoins.
And I'm guessing that's why it's not allowed in the US, because you're using inverse perpetual swaps.
Yeah, well, we don't really need it because we do have direct access to US dollar. So the whole idea is somebody like in Venezuela who doesn't have direct access, they don't have banks where you can just take US dollar out. So the idea is to give somebody who doesn't have access, it's a little weird with El Salvador because they do have access to the US dollar, but I mean, people like Venezuela will use it to maintain, you know, the peg dollar. It's way more, like their currency's going to nothing, so like having exposure to the US dollar is a world above their fiat currency. So eventually, hopefully, they'll just discover Bitcoin, and that could be their long-term savings, their life savings, their 10-year. I'm not going to touch this investment for 10 or 20 years, and potentially their stable stats is going to be to pay their water bill this month. And that's why a lot of people, we originally weren't going to build this feature. Like it's pretty hard to implement, but the people in El Zonte, the Bitcoin beach, were like, hey, I need to pay my water bill this month. Bitcoin just dropped 50%. How am I going to pay my water bill? This is Bitcoin. Bitcoin's awesome for the future, but I mean, there's short-term volatility. So we really like the pupusa lady had to pay her gas and electric bill. So we pretty much had to develop a product for user demand, and that Bitcoin beach was the real use case. So a lot of the people there are keeping their monthly expenses maybe 6 to 12 months in advance in the stable sats, and then the life savings in Bitcoin. So, yeah.
So why isn't it allowed in the US? Sorry.
Oh, the U.S. I mean, the U.S. The regulation is just so insane. Like so right now, Strike is the big company here, right? And I think Jack Muller said that his company spends millions of dollars on just lawyers and just all that stuff, just so that the technology can see the light of day. And these other countries, it's just easier. Like it's just easier. The regulations are just more relaxed on how you have to get like a full banking license to do this kind of stuff. Other than that, we do have like an entire, like I said earlier, we have an entire API for Lightning. We have GraphQL APIs if you're familiar with that technology. But yeah, this is just a shill for our open source stack that we have. All right, so now I'm going to talk a little bit, change gears a little bit, and talk about our conference, Adopting Bitcoin. So if you've never been to El Salvador and you thought that video was cool about Bitcoin Beach, there's an opportunity every November. We do a conference, about 1,000 people show up. It's partially an economics conference, partially like a technical developers conference, and then partially just about like adopting Bitcoin day-to-day use. How is it actually working in a real country? So there's something for everybody there. You don't have to be a programmer or even deep into economics to go. It's a very cool conference. I'm going to show you guys a little video recap of like last year, just a little montage. Yeah, so that's Adopting Bitcoin. It's an annual conference. I think I have a second video. Why does this button not work very good? And here's one more little montage video just to kind of give you a feel for the conference. I think like $200.
Chris Hunter, he is the co-founder of Galoy and the Bitcoin Beach wallet, and he is going to be talking about the comeback country of El Salvador.
to the second annual Lightning Summit in El Salvador.
Bitcoin Beach right there. Yeah, so it's a super fun conference. I think Carr asked how much tickets are. I think they're about $200, so it's a pretty reasonable conference. I think the earlier you buy them, the better. But they just announced the 2023 dates, which I think I have on the slide here with some new details. Question?
How much is a flight from Austin to there?
It's fairly inexpensive. It's not that long of a flight. I think when I went last year, I had a layover in Miami, but I think like $500 or $600 round trip. I mean, if you book earlier, it can be cheaper, but it's not that far away. It's in the same time zone. It's in the central time zone, so it's just basically just straight.
It's a 5-hour flight.
5-hour flight? Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, the conference is really fun. You saw like one of the scenes had a beer draft. You could actually pay with a Lightning wallet an invoice and would actually automatically pour the beer. So you kind of see like the beer tap of the future. Like I've been to a couple brew tub pubs before where they give you this little credit card and you preload it up with a voucher and you can like get beer. But I mean, it's cool to pay with Bitcoin and get your beer. So that was pretty fun.
Was there any politicians there or the president of the conference?
The president was supposed to show up, but he got like super busy. Like he couldn't show up. But I mean, as for like just El Salvador in general, it's extremely safe now. If you look at some of the news articles in like 2015, it was like gang ridden and it was unsafe. But I mean, Bukele basically created. Essentially, I've heard Max Kaiser describe it as kind of like the FBI, right? So the FBI was created, I believe, in the during Prohibition to get rid of all the gangs in like Chicago, the mobsters, Al Capone and all these people. Except what we did wrong is it was supposed to be a temporary police force to get rid of the gangs, and then it was supposed to go away. And then the FBI never should have really existed. So Bukele kind of did something similar, where he created this, essentially the equivalent to an FBI to get rid of all these gangs. Because if you look at the history of it, a lot of it is like this gang called like MI13 or something from LA, like it's in LA can ship it back to LA. It's this big mess. But they were basically bribing politicians, and like I was saying about Bitcoin Beach, is like people were afraid to go to the city and take cash out and bring it home because they might have to pay off the mob boss, on the way home. But that's totally different. I think an article just came out a couple days ago where there hasn't been a homicide in an entire year. Like 365 days. That's insane. Like, I watch the Austin news and I'm like, I hear about a homicide every other day or somebody drowning on Rainy Street or Lady Bird. I don't know. The Rainy Street River. I don't know if we could about that, but that's another story. But we drove around. We rented our own car. We drove around the country, kind of in the neighborhood. I felt, safe the whole time. So. And to go back to Bukele not showing up, I think he was working on some of the gang-related stuff, and that's why he couldn't come to the conference. But he also sent us like police escorts. So like when we had a charter bus take us from San Salvador to Bitcoin Beach, it's about an hour drive. We had a police escort the whole way. It was pretty awesome.
Oh wow!
We just zipped right there.
It's kind of awesome, kind of scary at the same time.
But seeing the news and being there, I felt safe. So you gotta see it.
So it seems like he over prepares.
You guys.
That's good.
So yeah, this next little clip is a little bit getting into like Bitcoin Beach. and like just what it looks like. And this is the last day of the conference. Everyone went to Bitcoin Beach on the charter buses.
It's pretty crazy, like how you said all the statistics about El Salvador becoming like, no murders or homicides and all that.
Yeah.
I know Safe talks about it, and it's all due to using the hard money. Because the money we use right now, since the inflation and everything's so bad, all the taxation, everybody's essentially getting robbed. You have a poor population, they get desperate. So when they get desperate, a lot of people are going to do crazy things like steal, rob, kill, all this stuff. So.
Well, and just a simple thing of like, if you're a criminal, you go to jail. Like, it's just very simple. Like, just like.
It's insane. Like, it's crazy to think how like just using the hard money, something that appreciates over time, that no one can take from you. You have to give it to someone.
Yeah.
How that can change your way of living and like bring you back to these first principles.
Yeah.
That's what we see in the Bitcoin community. These guys since day one, since I've met them, everybody I've met in the community. It's always like, how can I help you? Because I need you to win. Because if you win, I'm going to win. That's the whole point of like skin in the game. We're all in this together.
Yeah, all the incentives are aligned, right? So,
just real interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Good to know. Yeah. So, anyways, to get back to the conference, like it's a really good conference. This picture right here is our friend Dusty, who is like a crazy smart Bitcoin engineer. He's creating technologies right now that'll help, scale, increase the scalability of Bitcoin and Lightning, and this is one of the tech stages. You can see some dev track. But there's something for everybody. There's economic stages, there's workshops, hands-on workshops where people like teach you how to use a hardware wallet if you've never used one or even build one like a seed signer. So yeah, it's just an all-around fun conference. About 1,000 people come. I think tickets are about $200. It's really cheap down there too. Like beers are dirt cheap, hotel rooms are way cheaper. It's cool. So surf lessons. Yeah, I have to do that next year. But anyways, yeah, here's more information about the conference. You can see the dates here, November 7th to 9th. So it looks like it's a couple weeks before Thanksgiving. I like to go down for like a week or two, and then I just get a flight back to like my parents' house in Michigan. Yeah. Oh, the weather's perfect. So it's perfect. Every day, sunny and 85. They explain they have two seasons down there, wet and dry season. It's always warm. I think the wet season is more like March, April. But in November, the weather is just perfect. Just perfect. Like beach weather every day. It doesn't get to be like 110 degrees hot like here sometimes. It's just perfect. 85, sunny.
Question. Does the frontier fly there?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Why, do you get a discount on Frontier?
Probably tries to make it.
Doesn't make it all the way.
Yeah, so I got one or two more sections. Kind of tipping off of the conference. Like when I was in El Salvador, I got to do a little bit of tourism too. Like you go to Bitcoin Beach one day, but El Salvador is also known for the volcanoes, just beautiful volcanoes and coffee, and there's coffee tourism. And I've got a couple of photos. So this right here is a picture of me. Right behind me is a dormant volcano. Behind that is just a beautiful sunset. There's a city down there. You can see like there's clouds bubbling up, and right back here is actually the ocean right there. So Bitcoin Beach is somewhere down there. But I mean, it's great. So we're high up on a volcano, I think 6,000 feet up, on a coffee farm. So they've got delicious coffee. If you're a coffee person, definitely drink El Salvador coffee. It's super good. And again, like this is just sunset on Bitcoin Beach over there. There was a surf competition going on that weekend, and I just randomly caught a video of like this guy flying in private chopper. I don't know, it was some Cash App guy or something. I think Cash App was hosting a surf competition. But yeah, too, I don't know how to surf. I want to learn how to surf. A lot of people took lessons and learned how to surf. It's a perfect spot. The unique thing about the Bitcoin beach is, it's not a white sandy beach, it's actually black sand, it's volcano rock. So the beach is actually super nice. It's a little bit rocky out there, but the waves are like a good, like novice wave. So if you want to learn how to surf, they're like, I don't know, 5-foot waves, 4-foot waves, something that's like pretty manageable for a novice who's never done it before. Oh yeah, so Miss Universe, she's a Bitcoiner. So this is a funny video I saw a couple weeks ago. I'll play you this. So that's Miss Universe. El Salvador.
El Salvador. This look represents El Salvador's history of currency. For a long time, cocoa was used, and then the colon, until it was replaced by the U.S. dollar. In 2021, El Salvador became the first country in the world to use Bitcoin as legal tender. You don't need a that. Go on around, dress as cash, like El Salvador.
I just thought that was pretty funny. Like, I actually follow her on Twitter now. It's funny because she actually is like, she's always talking about Bitcoin, and she's just traveling to these, cool places with volcanoes in the background talking about Bitcoin. So, yeah, it's kind of an interesting fact.
So is Bitcoin actually widely used? I mean, I know it was available to use as legal currency.
Yeah, it depends. Like, I've heard official adoption numbers like 20%, which to some people is like, that's not that many, but I'm like, it's a new currency. Like 20% adoption, in my opinion, is huge. But it depends, like where you're at. Like there's certain places like El Zonte where it's used all the time because they have the circular economy. In San Salvador, there's certain neighborhoods that accept it. Like the Bitcoin law was, if you're a large company like Starbucks or McDonald's and you're capable of it, you have to accept it, but they don't enforce it if you don't. So, at McDonald's or Starbucks, you just punch the computer screen and you can do it. But a local coffee shop, being a small thing, they don't legally have to take it. So it's hit or miss. And we've had Uber drivers who had the Chivo app, and they just use it for US dollars. They don't know about the Bitcoin, so you just explain it. You teach them. We taught our Uber drivers. By the way, Uber in El Salvador is dirt cheap. It's like $1 to go like a couple miles. It's so cheap. So we were giving like a 200% tip to these Uber drivers. So they were like, yeah, $2. And like, we'll give it to you in Bitcoin. And we're like, yeah, Bitcoin, I don't know how to use it though. So we're teaching them in the back of the cab how to use it. And now they know how to use Bitcoin. So just about education. So I think in time it'll get more popular, but right now, most people are just going to hold their Bitcoin because why wouldn't you? So.
And the thing about Bitcoin is it's the most, arguably the most liquid asset. You can exchange it for any currency in the world. It's the same thing as gold. So we're at the point right now where we pretty much just have to educate people on what true value is, because along the way we lost that, and everybody thinks now true value is the dollar, but nothing backs the dollar, right? But if you go back to like the 50s and 40s, you can go anywhere in the world with a piece of gold, not know the same language, pull out of your pocket, and they would know, oh, they want to exchange it for a good or a service. And then that gold can be used to, trade out for any currencies that they're using at the time. So I just think it's just education at this point.
Oh yeah. And the whole fact that there's only 21 million and it's scarce and it's going up in value, like numbers go up, technology.
And then that's the whole thing to it. Like when you pay somebody in it, like I paid a bartender in it here in San Antonio a couple months ago, and the price jumped. And I went back and I was like, hey, you saw that Bitcoin? He's like, yeah, man, I went up like $5 from 20 bucks. And I was like, pretty cool, right? I was like, that's what your money's supposed to do over the long run. It's supposed to appreciate, not depreciate.
Yeah. Everyone shouldn't have to become a professional investor, Wall Street guys, to just maintain their wealth. Like, just work your day job and save in Bitcoin and not have to think too much about it. So.
That's your wealth build over time. And I told him, I go, if I would have given you a $20 bill, what would have happened? You would have spent it fast. You would have got rid of it. And that just plays into the whole psyche about everybody's on a high time preference right now. So it's like, as soon as I get money, I got to spend it, boom.
Yeah, so this next section I'm going to kind of talk about kind of what we're building here, right? Austin, we've got our Austin community. You guys are obviously building your Bitcoin community out in San Antonio, but there's all sorts of communities around the world, and it's really fun. Like you can go to, I don't speak Spanish very well. I know Pagar con Bitcoin, like I know cerveza, like beer and maybe Bitcoin, like that's all I know. But it's cool because going to these countries and meeting people, like if you meet a Bitcoiner, you're kind of automatically on the same page. You're friendly with each other, and it's just cool. So there's all these different projects popping up all around the world. Obviously we have Bitcoin Beach in El Zonte in El Salvador, but there's like, these people in Costa Rica, they have Bitcoin Jungle, and they just had like a big conference. I think Jack Dorsey's living down there in Costa Rica, so they're getting pretty big. And all over, Brazil, they've got private Bitcoin. Senegal and Africa, they've got Bitcoin Teranga, Bitcoin Lake in Guatemala. So you see all these synergies. People see what's going on the internet, on Twitter, what you guys are posting, what we're posting. And it's just kind of snowballing. So this is kind of like what's happening. Like it kind of started, with us, we're kind of the big 2019. This is kind of Lightning was starting to get big. That was kind of the catalyst for all this. But you can see just all these different communities bubbling up all around the world. There's even a cooler map here, just all these places kind of gathered everywhere. You kind of see Africa and Latin America, kind of these emerging economies where it kind of makes sense, where it's going to kind of start first. And it's really the bottom-up Bitcoin adoption, right? Grassroots. It's not coming top-down, It's really starting, in El Salvador. Yeah, they adopted it at the country level, but they wouldn't have adopted it at the country level if it wasn't for what, Mike Peterson and our founders did at Galoy. The grassroots circular, what you're doing here in Austin, just grassroots, or not Austin, San Antonio, grassroots movement. And eventually you're going to catch somebody's eye. You might catch the ear or eye of like the news station right now. That might catch the eye of the mayor eventually, or some local businesses. And it's just bottom up grassroots is the way to go. So, for the win. All right, section 5. This is my last section. How am I on time? We good? All right. So Pleb Talk. So we're going to talk a little bit about. Do you want to come up?
No, you do.
Gar, you don't want to talk about
I think it should come from you because you participate.
All right. Yeah. So much like you guys have your community here, I'm a member of Pleb Talk. And I'm, paying member. I co-work out of there. We do these workshops all the time, and it's awesome to co-work with just other people, kind of in the same industry. Some of the people don't even, work at a. You don't have to work at a Bitcoin company to be part of this community. So there's a little promo video that I'm gonna play that Car put together for Logan. This just kind of shows that Pleb Talk.
People who want to get involved in Bitcoin, it's hard for them. It's hard to figure out where to go, right? There's so many memes and other things you can do online, but it's not where the action's happening. Here at Pleb Talk, this is where the action's happening. This is where people are thinking hard about tough questions, trying to solve technology that isn't yet invented.
I mean, it's, trite to say it's the people, obviously, but it really is, it's the people, it's the community at large.
Oh, favorite thing, of course, is the people. It's the people here. I mean, we're at the epicenter of Bitcoin development, in Bitcoin culture. We're down the street from Unchained Capital. We go over there, and there are people come over here, and we're just constantly mingling every day, every week. There's always events going on. There's like tons of Bitcoin events every month.
Often when I'm working, I get bored, and I want to go do something else. I want to get my mind off of work. And I usually do it by going for a walk. But the nice thing is I get to walk with other Bitcoiners. Or maybe I don't even go for a walk, but I'll just go and see what someone else is working on. And that's a way to take their mind off of my thing. And I really love that because, especially the latter one, it keeps me in the same realm. I'm getting my mind off of my project, letting my subconscious work on it, but I'm still I'm still in the same zone because I'm asking other people what they're working on, and they're telling me about their things, what they're excited about. And that's kind of my favorite part about Pleb Talk. Second to the warm-up boost.
Yeah, so that's kind of a promotion for our space, which I know, Gabe is trying to build something up here too. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing here?
Yeah, so that's the plan, man. Definitely what y'all built in Austin is something special. I don't believe in luck. It was meant to happen. That's why y'all are the Mecca of America when it comes to Bitcoin. Us being San Antonio right down the road, we're so lucky to just be y'all's next door neighbors. So what we're currently working on right now is to build a similar Pleb app down here to open up those corridors for Bitcoiners to be able to go to and from San Antonio and Austin. It's only an hour drive. It'll introduce this city to a lot more hardcore.
How fast are you driving?
You know, depends on what time you leave. But, you know, it'll bring many benefits to the city because having a physical office space will, you know, will convince these businesses here, like, oh, this is a real thing now. Like, there's a physical place I can go for information, because a lot of people have questions here in San Antonio. The businesses, a lot of them don't really know too much about Bitcoin. We have a lot of educated Bitcoiners here that, you know, just give them the truth, the nitty gritty. And I know I've met a couple builders out here that are very curious on it. So just having a Pleb Lab down here, actually wouldn't be called Pleb Lab. We already got a name. It's going to be Alamo Labs. Gotta keep some of that.
Remember the Alamo Lab.
Gotta keep some of that San Antonio, you know. But yeah, so we're working on building something with these guys to be able to allow for just the Austin and San Antonio Bitcoiners just to come together and, you know, be that Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex is about to be the Austin San Antonio Metroplex.
And Houston and Dallas. I mean, we can have everyone. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, a little far, but
yeah.
The whole thing about what they're saying about San Antonio.
But every city kind of has its niche, right? We're heavy in software development. Austin, Houston's heavy in Bitcoin mining and oil and gas. Dallas, I don't know what Dallas is good at. What are they good at?
Dallas are still figuring out.
They're still figuring it out. Dallas is Dallas. And you guys are, you know, question or whatever.
I'm really big on cybersecurity right now. But,
okay, security.
What I think we're really pivoting on, what we're starting to look at is, you know, down here we can be a help for remittance payments. We can start working on, already starting to educate some of the people here, translating videos in Spanish to get San Antonio more out there on the map. And the cool thing about San Antonio is we're at the tip of this triangle. It's called the South Texas Triangle. There's already a triangle in Texas. It's Austin, Dallas, and Houston. And a lot of people moving into the triangle. It's a lot of money, a lot of land, a lot of businesses. What's cool about San Antonio is we're sitting at the top of this South Texas Triangle, and they're calling us the city of innovation right now. Because you don't see us like a big tech city yet. But guess what? There's a lot of builders here right now. There's a lot of new ideas. There's a lot of opportunity down here right now.
Yeah, and it only starts with a small core group of people, right? Like Pleb Lab started with like 3 guys, really passionate, spending a lot of time. Just people see the energy. They see it on Twitter. They start coming here. You slowly, it's like Parker says, like slowly then suddenly, right? And it really just takes a core group of people, like, you know, everyone in this room today. It seems like that you got your core group here. So.
And the awesome thing that will happen with that is it would give San Antonio more exposure to Bitcoiners. So they would always say in Austin when I was living out there, businesses, the most expensive steakhouse out there takes Bitcoin. It'd be like if Bohannon takes Bitcoin. That's the most expensive steakhouse down here. The owner, he would say, he would have one guy come in and be like, oh, can I pay in Bitcoin? It's like, oh, that's kind of like a joke. But then they have a second one, and a third person come in, and it's kind of like, oh man, maybe I should start looking into this. So like just opening the Alamo Labs and having the workspace for other developers, you know, in Austin or anywhere around this whole southern area, it'll open up businesses to start seeing that type of activity. And that'll make it a lot easier on us here to, you know, build up San Antonio even more. You know, we've already done so much already, but it's about to 10x. It's about to 10x here soon.
I see it. I see it happening.